Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our conversation, our virtual panel, if you will, about hunger and homelessness in Alamance County. I am Shereá Burnett, and I will now introduce our moderator for the evening, who is Miss Adrienne Barr. So Adrienne is a local author in Alamance County. She's also a human resources professional. She does a variety of things that she probably doesn't want me to tell all of you about because she sometimes doesn't want me to announce how dope she is, but we'll say that she is also a volunteer who does a lot for agencies who do a lot for people who are experiencing homelessness, and that is why she was invited to be the moderator this evening. So without further ado, Ms. Barr, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Shereá. So first and foremost, we do want to just give you a little bit of information about Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week is an annual program where people come together across the country to draw attention to the problems of hunger and homelessness. Participating groups spend the week holding a series of educational service, fundraising, and advocacy events. You can join the movement to end hunger and homelessness by visiting https://hhweek.org, and I will place that in the comment section. So let's go ahead and get into who our panelists are this evening. First and foremost, we have Shereá Burnett. Shereá was raised in Alamance County, North Carolina. She identifies as Afro-Indigenous and is a proud citizen of the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation. Shereá attended the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where she majored in political science and African American studies. She also minored in social and economic justice. She received her Juris Doctorate degree from Elon University Law School in 2013. Shereá is the Director of Rapid Rehousing for Family Abuse Services of Alamance County's Housing Division. In this role, she supervises a dynamic team of specialists and case managers who closely work with people experiencing homelessness and those fleeing domestic violence. The goal of this program is to house clients rapidly and to provide resources and services that will assist clients in maintaining stability once housed. Shereá has more than 10 years of experience providing services to families and to victims of domestic violence, as well as 7 years of experience working with those experiencing homelessness in Alamance County. Our next panelist is Monika Gauthier. She is the executive and founder of the nonprofit, the KEYA Foundation. And KEYA, K-E-Y-A, stands for Keep Empowering Yourself Abundantly, which is a teen dating violence prevention and awareness program. Monika has a background in case management with over 20 plus years of experience. Monika is currently a case manager for FAS Rapid Rehousing Program and has worked in the housing field for over 15 plus years. Monika is a certified housing counselor as well as a certified HQS housing inspector. Monika has created, facilitated, and implemented a tenant education orientation program that teaches individuals their rights as a tenant, helps them understand the responsibilities of their landlords while also covering financial money management to create skills around budgeting and tracking expenses. Monika is currently working on an affordable housing program called The More Home with other organizations within the county. The More Home will offer a safe, affordable, quality housing in Alamance County. Monika's passion is helping and serving the community while empowering individuals to become assertive and use their voice. Monika feels housing is a right and everyone deserves a safe place to call home. So true. And then we have, last but not least, we have the wonderful Jaye Baker. Jaye Baker is the executive director of Allied Churches and also manages Joe's Diner, which is a community kitchen that serves over 40,000 meals last year. Jaye has 20 plus years of service with the Department of Corrections and is former contractor for the Department of Federal Bureau of Prisons. He is a leader in many local and national fraternal and civic organizations and is a proud member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. He is a husband, a father, and mentor to many that he meets. So if you all will just join me in welcoming the panel. So to get us all started with the first question, how do we define hunger? What does hunger look like in Alamance County?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Baker to start this.
Good evening. Hunger and homelessness. Well, let's just start with hunger in Alamance County. Kind of comes from a myriad of directions, a myriad of ways as an entry point. Having lack of fresh fruits and vegetables would be the national marker, right? That marker is identified to what we know as food insecurity, or maybe being a part of a food desert, which Alamance County is actually listed as. So that would be the textbook definition. Those other entry points would be just the lack of ability to afford food. When you think about running a community kitchen, we think about all of the different diets. You think about all of the different trends and are we vegan? Are we pescatarian? And we do know that those diets and those different life eating styles tend to cost more than if you were shopping, at a regular grocery store, buying just regular meats, bread, fruits, and vegetables. So that would be a second way. And then thirdly, I think what is more important in Alamance County is the access to the food itself. That could be in the form of transportation, that could be in the form of provided meals, and that could also come in the form of, we like to call it food education. To give a quick example, collard greens, right, was something that maybe many of us grew up on. But our parents, especially if you grew up with your grandmother, they cooked collard greens for like 6 hours. Like there was a whole day to cook collard greens. Now in the 2020s, collard greens are prepared in like 15 minutes. So we have to start around food education, around how to prepare foods, how to serve meals, how to make those meals quick, so that you can get your daily intake of fruits and vegetables, and it doesn't take you starting the Sunday dinner on Saturday night to get fed. That would be my kind of entry points into what food insecurity looks like.
I think to add on to that, we also in Alamance County have quite a few food pantries and a lot of food banks that are operated by churches. But if you notice, a lot of times, if they are a church-based food pantry, they only can operate 1 month out of the year, or 1 weekend out of the month, right? So then only 12 times per year. So think about the fact that depending on what your transportation looks like, you might get a box of food on a Saturday, and you might need to try to stretch it for a month when it's really not meant to last that long. And so then we have a lot of agencies that do a lot of work around food, but a lot of them are not in close walking distance to some people. And then again, transportation continues to be a barrier. And we only have public transportation in the city limits of Burlington and in like the courthouse area of Graham. So the Southern Alamance Family Empowerment Center that's out on 87 South has become a very helpful place for a lot of people in the southern part of the county who are looking for food. But then they, of course, rely on a lot of grocery stores and local farmers. So if there's severe weather or if there's an issue with crops, that then kind of lessens how much they have available to give to people. And then if you're somebody who's not in close proximity to Highway 87, it's not very easy for you to get to them either. So I think that we're making progress in Alamance County around recognizing hunger and recognizing what we can do, but a lot of resources have not been put into addressing hunger as they could have been, especially in parts of the county that are not, where you can't just walk down the street and get a meal. There aren't a lot of restaurants once you go past certain points. There's not a lot of grocery stores once you go past certain points. So when Jay was talking about food deserts, I think we hear about food deserts and think about that as something that happens in major cities. And we overlook the clusters in Alamance County of where there are no grocery stores, no fast food restaurants, and the best you might have is like a gas station or like a quick stop type area. And a lot of times what's in those stores, again, like Jay said, if you're on a special diet, if you're somebody watching your sugar intake, the gas station is probably not the best place for you to shop. And it's definitely not the most, financially conservative place. And if you're on food stamps, they may or may not take EBT. So then you kind of keep just running into barriers each step of the way.
I think I'll just go ahead and just sum it up with everything that Ms. Shereá has just said and everything Mr. Baker has said. Within Alamance County, what I noticed, although I'm not a resident in Alamance County, I've worked in Alamance County for over 7+ years now. Access is definitely key to hunger and food within Alamance County. Shereá brought up a great point of those desert silo areas. I lived in Burlington for about a year, and I lived way out Alamance road, way out that way. And the only access to the store was that little gas grocery store that was right across the street. So if my car wasn't working, I was no way near able to get to a gas station, get to a grocery store to get quality food. So what I do in my role is definitely teach individuals how to make that money and that food stretch. How many different meals could you make up with, kind of that saying, make $1 out of 15 cents for your meal that could last until the next time your food stamps is coming in, and then you have access in order to get to quality food of what that looks like as well. So within Alamance County, definitely I see a lack of grocery stores in certain areas and transportation and access to that. I think what Mr. Baker failed to mention though at Joe's Diner is the free services of food that he offers. There are times when I go to work every day and I don't have lunch, and I'm like, well, Allied Churches serves lunch Monday through Friday, 11:30 to 12:30, and I let everybody know, get there. That's that access that helps someone's budget. If they can get those 10 free meals a week, that cuts down on money that they have to put towards food if they don't have food stamps. So definitely within the community, Allied Churches is definitely one of the areas that is addressing that for all individuals and what that looks like too. And great that they're on the bus line, because that access is key when making sure that we're trying to get food and hunger for people and individuals and their families.
Absolutely. Okay, so how do we define homelessness, and what does homelessness look like in Alamance County?
Jay is looking at me. I feel it in my spirit. Okay. So there are several definitions of homelessness, right? And I think that there are like federal definitions, national definitions, there are state definitions, there are local definitions, and then there are community definitions. I think the problem is that so often in this community, homelessness and housing are defined based on people's privilege, and I don't know that they're always cognizant of that. So, perfect example. You have a friend who's sleeping on people's couches. He sleeps on the same person's couch for a week at a time. He knows that when he gets off work or when he gets out of school, he can go and sleep on that person's couch. To you, depending on your circumstances, the life you've lived, he may or may not be homeless, right? So at the federal level, HUD defines homelessness and they break it down into 5 different categories, right? So you have people who are literally homeless. That means that they are sleeping in a place not meant for habitation. Think of a car, think of a park. They're outside. They are staying in a shelter or a transitional housing. They have recently been released from an institution, think mental health, think prison, and they have nowhere to go. You have people that are at imminent risk of homelessness, or people who are just at risk of homelessness, right? So the difference is, have you been told to get out of your housing in 14 to 15 days, or have you been told to get out of your house in 21 to 30 days? You have children that are declared homeless under other federal statutes. So I know we have some school social workers in the chat. McKinney-Vento is an example of how we talk about the transient population and students who have been determined to be transient or experiencing homelessness because of various family situations. You then have people that are fleeing domestic violence, and domestic violence looks like stalking. It looks like trafficking. It looks like physical violence or any other way in which you define domestic violence. Those people are homeless because they have fled from that situation and have nowhere to go. And so in those 5 broad categories, you have people that will shuffle between all 5 categories. And HUD says that all of that counts as homelessness. So going back to our person that's sleeping on the couch, well, they're sleeping on the couch every day. And if you're somebody who never had to sleep on anybody else's couch, you have decided they're homeless. Like they don't have a lease, they don't have their own bed. They clearly must be homeless. Well, not based on those 5 categories, because at the end of the day, that person knows they can go stay on that couch. And until somebody tells that person that they have to get out of their home and stop staying on their couch, they are technically not homeless. Sometimes they might be at risk of homelessness because people argue, people might tell you to get out, things like that, but they are not homeless. And I think that a lot of times in Alamance County, when we define homelessness, we expect homelessness to look a certain way and involve a certain type of people, right? So think of people experiencing mental health crises, people who may have extensive criminal records, people who may have substance abuse problems. We forget about the teenagers who have been kicked out by their parents because they've reached a certain age and they don't want them in their home anymore. We forget about the disabled who somebody might have financially exploited them and they can't afford to pay their bills to remain in their housing. We forget about people who work every day, but maybe they work construction and it's been raining and they haven't made enough money to be able to save up for security deposits or utility deposits. So they might be staying in a shelter, working every single day, but they just don't have the means yet to get into housing. So I think that how we define homelessness is important, but even more so recognizing where we impose our privilege on other people and decide that they're homeless just because their plan doesn't match the plan we would make for ourselves.
Awesome. I think through the years, I've only been doing this like 2 days, but through the years, I think one way that I've addressed this question is to really talk about what homelessness is not, right? And the first category we talk about is client choice, client privilege. Or for us who work in the business, that makes sense. For those who don't, I kind of like it to, are you in my business, right? You in my business, don't do that. If an individual chooses not to be housed, if an individual chooses to stay in tents, then according to all the laws, any law that you would like to look up, that individual has the right to do so. That individual technically is homeless, but because of his or her own volition, they have not entered to get any of the services that we'll talk about here moving forward. So I think that when we talk about privilege and not understanding, that is definitely one way that a lot of people don't understand. Secondly, because you don't have a lease in your name does not mean that you're homeless. I encountered that in 2016, and it took like 2 years to get people to understand that just because you don't have a lease in your name does not mean you're homeless. Those federal statutes and those federal funds are not lease-based, right? Now, when you get those funds, of course, you're required, and we're required, the people on this panel here are required to make sure that there's a lease that comes with that per federal guidelines and statutes. But that does not automatically deem an individual as homeless. Thirdly, I kind of like childhood examples. Many of us on this screen probably spent summers upon summers at our grandmother and grandfather's house, right? That did not mean that you were homeless. That was a regular place for you to stay. I can think about my dad, who in his many years of gaining PhDs and education and all of that stuff, I stayed with my grandparents. Did not mean that I was homeless, but that was just the way to make sure that I had a roof over my head and that roof was stable. To go back to Shereá said, that was an everyday stable place and environment for me to go to. So that also didn't mean that I was homeless. It just meant that I was not in the home with my biological parents, my mother and father. So again, sometimes we have to roll back the privilege and just talk about things that don't make you homeless, right? Because then you can start to segregate and start to look at what are those factors and how do we mitigate those moving forward.
And I guess I'll round it up. But you guys had great points. But I also think too, in order to understand homelessness, you got to understand the homelessness in the county and the area that you're in. We're not a skid row in LA. So we can't say we have a big homelessness problem when we don't here in Alamance County. We have a problem, but it's not a Skid Row LA problem. We have situational homelessness. The situation is I work landscape, and the example Shereá gave, and I don't have enough income now because it rained all week to pay my rent. So now my situation has made me homeless, that it could be quickly resolved. I think too, within Alamance County, homelessness looks like, if you don't have affordable housing, then you're going to have homelessness. If we have to work, if an individual who's making minimum wage has to work 127 plus hours in order to afford their 2-bedroom. And because of COVID hit, now they don't have no hours and they're not making that 127 hours in order to afford their rent. Now we have another situation of homelessness. So I think we need to understand what homelessness looks like in our area and then be able to fix the problem and understand the core of that problem of what it looks like.
And since Monika mentioned that, I wanted to throw out some stats to kind of make it ring true. And Jay and I have talked about these stats in some group presentations that some of you have been a part of. So it'll be old hat for y'all, but y'all know how this goes. In 2019, 27% of Alamance County households were cost burdened. So cost burden means that their rent utilities was more than 30% of their income. That is 17,118 households. That was in 2019 before COVID. So COVID has made this worse. There was recently an article that came out in the Times News that a lot of people were conversing about because they were so caught off guard by this statistic. Just 11% of Alamance County employees are paid enough to afford the rising cost of living as a sole provider in Alamance County. We always think of people with county jobs as having some of the best money, some of the best benefits, 11%. The hourly wage to afford a 2-bedroom rental home, which is what Monika was getting at. A 2-bedroom rental home in North Carolina is $18 per hour, but the current North Carolina minimum wage is $7.25 per hour. So the number of hours that people would have to work equal more hours than there are in a week at times just to make rent, right? And then lastly, the fair market rent for a 2-bedroom residence in Alamance County is supposed to be $891 per month per the federal government. But the average 2-bedroom apartment in Burlington costs $1,069 per month. So to Monika's point and to Jay's point, some of this really falls back to being about affordable housing, right? And so there are people that we might not necessarily consider homeless, but they are homeless because there's not affordable housing for them to get into and remain stable.
Thank you, Shereá, for throwing those stats out there. I'm pretty sure that that's eye-opening to a lot of people. Jay, did you want to add to that?
I think this is where it gets real good, right? This is where all of the information starts to come from. We also did some research around apartment complexes in the area, and I kind of shared this with the county commissioners. Of the 36 most prominent apartment buildings or complexes, and I call it the triad, not the triad that you traditionally know as North Carolinians, but as the Burlington, Mebane, Graham triad area. Out of the 36 apartment complexes, only 6 fall under the affordable housing code, meaning that how do we house individuals that are working or having to work as many hours as they're having to work? That is a big to-do in the work that we do. And I think we'll talk maybe on down the road about ways to counteract that. Now, Monika started to talk about some education around budgeting of food, and we'll talk some more about that. But I thought that was a staggering thing to understand, that as all of these developments are going up, they're not affordable to over 70% of the population of Alamance County. Even given COVID, and maybe the only positive thing out of COVID right now has been that the minimum wage has not gone up, but the hourly wage that places are serving has started to go up to $12 an hour. Even with that robust of an increase, people are still not able to find housing that would be affordable. 30% includes your rent, lights, gas, and water, and all of your utilities. So that's a big deal. So we'll talk about some of the things, I think, later, Adrienne and panel, that we do individually to kind of counteract that and provide that patient and community education on how to make your dollar stretch.
Okay. All right, thank you guys for all that great detail. I'm pretty sure it's very, eye-opening for us all to really take it all into perspective. So what specifically is your agency doing to combat hunger and/or homelessness?
I defer to Jaye Baker.
Why did I know that you were going to say that? So again, Allied Churches is your local homeless shelter here, right? 89 bed facility. We're one of the most unique shelters in the area, and everywhere I go on vacation, I visit the city's homeless shelter as a way of research on how we can be better at what we do in the services that we provide. Allied Churches has a single men and a single women's dorm, and we also have a family dorm where mothers and children can interact and stay together. That is totally secure and separated from the rest of the shelter. Also, we have Joe's Diner, who there is no requirements to receive meals at Joe's Diner. We serve free lunch and dinner Monday through Friday, 11:30 to 12:30, 6:30 to 7:30. One of the things that I kind of wanted to change at Allied Churches was around this negative connotation of the word soup kitchen. When you think about soup kitchen, historically, you see people in line with metal spoons, a metal bowl, and a metal canister, and they're like using soup. So the first thing I did was Allied Churches does not serve soup in their kitchen at all. Our goal and our main idea was to serve healthy meals where you're going to get a meat and 2 vegetables. So we took off scouring the county to get people to help pour in to what we do. The great thing about our community kitchen is that community kitchen is 97% donation driven, meaning that the food that comes in is 97% donated, along with all of the work, the community involvement that goes into preparing those meals as well. So not only do I have hired employees that work for Allied Churches, but we also partner with some other programs to get senior citizens and seniors back in some employment. So they also partner with Joe's Diner, and we have some of those seniors who we know have a wealth of knowledge in preparing meals, right? So we bring that in. So we have a lot of grandmothers and a lot of grandfathers in the kitchen to be able, to whip up that good gravy and make sure that that rice is on point. Because again, my whole goal is I want to be able to serve meals, not for the homeless population. I'm serving meals for the community. I want to be able to serve meals so that Shereá can come by, that Adrienne can come by. I think I saw one of my partners, Kim Yarborough's on the screen, that she can come by and get meals. We really want to be able to impact. The second part of Joe's Diner is just around education. One of the things, my hiring process for Joe's Diner is very unique, but it speaks to the need of the community. When we got ready to interview people for that job, we just walked them in the food pantry and said, here's your interview. I need you to prepare me 5 meals with what you see before you. If individuals were able to pull cans and nooks and crannies out and come up with a meal, then that was the type of individual that we needed in the kitchen, because we never know what our menu will look like for that day, right? So we have to be very creative. We have to be very versed. We have to become diverse. This year we experimented with tofu to make sure that we could get this tofu just right? So that we could start serving it so that our clientele could eat it. Chickpeas was another big thing. We had to educate the community that chickpeas was a meat substitute. Not that we weren't going to serve meat, but that we wanted to do that. And for our cooks, we had to then train them on, you can infuse flavor into the chickpeas. How do you prepare them? So really, and then having those conversations with the individuals that come into Joe's Diner, when they say, hey, what we got today? So now we can start talking about what do we have? How do we prepare it? And those foods back in the day when they were known as commodities, right? We used to, I'm a little older than most people. We called it commodities, the can with the white label with the black writing. How do you make those foods taste good? How do you provide recipes, meals, and just tips to the community to prepare those same meals? And thirdly, with Joe's Diner, we give out about 1,500 pounds of food probably every 2 days. Meaning that not only do you get a meal, but you can come pick up fruits, vegetables, zuzus and wham whams, whatever we got, we send them out the front door. The whole idea is you get a meal and you take a meal, right? We want to make sure that we're reaching grandmothers, their children, there's children, and the ones that are not even born yet. We're trying to infuse some understanding into those parents about how to feed and how to make a dollar stretch. So that's kind of what Allied Churches is looking forward to doing. There are some things in the works with Joe's Diner to expand that service. But we really want to impact to the community and get feedback from the community around what meals they want to see. And it's not always chicken, contrary to popular belief. We do serve other meals besides chicken.
So it's probably going to be easiest for us to talk about what we do around hunger first and then go back to what we do around homelessness. So I will say that around hunger, Monika and I would probably have the same answer. So at Family Abuse Services in the Housing Division, we have recently started a community food closet and a community toiletry closet. And we did this because we had a lot of clients who were able to get into their own housing. We were able to assist them financially, and then they were kind of taking the ball and running with it from there. But a lot of times they weren't equipped to cover everything at once like they thought they would be able to. So you've moved into this house and you've bought furniture. Maybe you don't have money for food now, or maybe you bought food and don't have money for furniture. So it was kind of like a back and forth of seeing what clients would need. We had more and more clients that were waiting on things, like maybe they were waiting on their food stamps application to be approved or something like that. So we would refer them to Allied Churches for meals, but we also realized, yes, some of them were taking food boxes, some of them were not. Some people had, I would say, a lot of pride, and it was easier for them to talk to our staff. Zoe Gillespie is our housing search and placement coordinator. Miriam is our housing enrollment specialist, and then Monika is our case manager. And because they've kind of built rapport with these clients over several weeks, sometimes several months, the client might be more forthcoming with them and say, I really don't have any food. So we wanted to have food on hand where we could put together a box for food, a box for toiletries, and provide that to them quick as we could. And so we don't have a lot of meats. Meats are not something that we really have a lot of space for and are able to box up and get out, but we do have a lot of canned foods, working on getting a lot of things, healthy options for kids, things like that. And so one thing that I hope Monika will share when she talks about hunger and our agency is that we've seen our clients say things like what Jay's talking about, like being introduced to healthy options or having the option to grocery shop has changed their life just as much as getting their own housing. And so for us, being able to provide that food box, it's not something we can do on an ongoing basis, but it's something that we can at least try to tide you over until you get food stamps or until your process gets clear with your money about your budget, and then you can kind of take it from there.
So I'll elaborate more on what Shereá was just talking about. I think it's important for agencies that are working individual with families is to understand what their needs are. We didn't understand that need of food was anything that our clients needed until that rapport was there and they started trusting us to tell us what was going on and what they needed. A lot of individuals and agencies thinks, okay, I provide this person with a home, with the house, they should be fine, they're good to go. I think it's great to have those wraparound services and stay connected with agencies and with individuals, so that then they can be able to discuss, hey, you know what, I really need this. This is what I really am looking for. And this one particular client, I tell you, he made our job wonderful because he said that he can sit down now in his Archie Buncher chair that he received and is able to look in his cabinets and see that he has food. What led him to his homelessness was a heart attack that he had from not eating and other medical diseases and things that he had from not having a nutritious diet. And he was just happy that he was in a space that was his own, that he didn't have to get out and leave. And now he can concentrate on his diet to get himself better so that he can get more active in doing things, what needed to be done. So I think we have to understand that hunger and homelessness, they intersect. And we have to be able to address those issues and have those resources available. And I think that was great that coming to Shereá with that our agency was able, if this person can't get to Allied Churches, how could we have something tangible to give them, to get them through and what that looks like. And I think another thing that we really focus on within and we'll talk about this, further too, within case management, we provide extensive budgeting, and budgeting is not so much about saving money, but it's about really tracking your expenses, see how much money you're spending in a particular area, and then trying to change that expenses so that you can change your spending habits so it'll last. I always give the example of coffee. I love Dunkin' Donuts. It's my favorite cup of coffee. But I had to make that Dunkin' Donuts stretch, because spending over $800 a year on one cup of Dunkin' Donuts of coffee is kind of crazy. And I work every day. So how was I able, or how is this individual able to make their meals that they have stretch, and what that looks like? So of course, cutting down my Dunkin' Donuts from buying it every day, making it at home, I'm able to save over $500, but I'm still able to get my coffee. I'm still able to save, and I'm able to have my dollar stretch. So very sitting down with clients and explaining to them and showing them, how to make a meal, what that meal can consist of, and what resources are available for them as well.
Okay, and I do just want to go back around, if everyone can tell what it is that their agencies do for homelessness specifically.
Sorry, Adrienne, I just wanted to interject for 1 minute. I was also going to say that another thing that all of the agencies represented on the screen do is refer people. So we make sure when people enter the doors of allied churches, when they come through the doors at our housing division, we make sure that we're getting them signed up for things like food stamps and things like that they're automatically eligible for, because we also want to recognize the fact that there are resources and options out there. And sometimes we just need to point you in the right direction to then go about that process and handle things for yourself. And I'm going to defer to Jaye Baker again to talk about what Allied Churches does about homelessness.
So homelessness it would take the three of us to really give us a great snapshot of what addressing homelessness looks like, right? Addressing homelessness is not always about pouring money into a system. And I do want to hammer that home. When systems are in place and processes are in place, a lot of times we just need to follow the processes, right? We need to get people into the right agencies. The right agencies make the right referrals. The right people on your screen do the right things, and then we have great stories to tell. So we do what we call a comprehensive approach, where we use coordinated assessment. It's an assessment that wraps around 5 core areas for an individual, where we look at family dynamics, we look at health and mental wellness, we look at employment, we look at education, and last but not least, of course, is the access to housing. We do believe that if we can attack those 5 core issues, that there is a way to stably house anybody. And I think the 2 ladies know that that is kind of how I feel. If you can get someone to allied churches and we can do a nice coordinated assessment, we can house anybody at any given point. The thing has to be that dynamic of having trust in what we do, and having trust between a professional and a client, and understanding that we're here to actually help move people out of homelessness into something that they can call their own. So that assessment then opens them up to so many resources. When I say so many, I think at one point we had like 92 resources we could refer a person to. Many of those we do in-house, but there's things like alcohol and drug treatment. There could be some budgeting classes. While we do it there, sometimes we think individuals need a little hands-on approach versus a group approach to budgeting. We do some things around clothing that we can get individuals clothing free of charge. There's so many resources that we can give the community or individual that comes in. The whole idea around this is, don't let one of those 5 core areas not be addressed, right? If you address those 5 core areas, the hardest of that is, of course, is family dynamics. Adrienne, I don't know you well. I know you well enough, but I don't know you well. But if Adrienne was presenting to us, Uncle Jay is what they affectionately call me at work. Uncle Jay's gonna call Adrienne's mom. And Uncle Jay's gonna ask Ms. Barr, why is Adrienne in my office and not sitting down talking to you? Whatever that answer is, then it starts to be what we call mediation. How do I mediate between Adrienne and Ms. Barr to resolve this issue to make sure that Adrian has a stable place to stay. Now, sometimes that works good for Adrian. Sometimes that may work a little better for Ms. Barr, depending on what that issue is. But we have to be able to spend the time. It's what I tell staff. It's what I've told the two ladies on the screen that are on my panel. You have to perfect your craft, and you have to be serious about what you do. To do a coordinated assessment in 5 minutes is a snapshot of a way to get Adrian out of homelessness. We have resolved your life's issues in a 5-minute phone call, right? Or a 5-minute interview. We have to perfect our craft. We have to build relationships like we have with Shereá and Monika, and you as well, Adrian. We have to build those relationships. Secondly, if you're staying in the shelter, then sometimes we have to talk about structure and providing structure for individuals. I think as we were raised, we felt like structure was a bad thing, right? It was the bad word, right? Structure meant punishment. Now it's more about education around structure means repeatedly doing the same thing the same way to get a desired result, right? It's not punishment. It's what would take you 30 minutes can only take you 10 minutes if we're becoming great at what we do. So providing structure to individuals who may not have had structure prior to coming into allied churches, or may just need to be reminded of what that structure looks like, and how we can impact adults and children. And what we found out through some of our structure program is the children flourish while they're at allied churches, right? Flourish so much, sometimes we have to remind the children that they're still children and not the parent, because the children start to correct the parents around, that's not the process, mom. That's not what we should be doing right now. So really impacting, and just going back to the core thing of, we learn things when we ate at the dinner table, right? Having those one-on-one conversations, providing a safe and secure environment, and then also nurturing them and empowering them to move on their own. That's what we think ending homelessness looks like.
So I'm going to kick this off, and then I'm going to pass it to Monika to talk about her subject area expertise with family abuse services. So for us, what we're doing around homelessness is that we received quite a bit of COVID funding. And this was funding where people earmarked this money specifically to address homelessness, and different agencies across the state accepted that funding and said that they would lead the charge in their regions in assisting with homelessness and what that looks like. So for us, what we're doing for homelessness and about homelessness depends on each client's situation. So sometimes that looks like, you speaking to somebody on the front end that does a coordinated entry assessment, kind of like what Jay was talking about. And then they kind of refer you to whichever program would be the best fit for you based on your situation. Sometimes that means referring them to Jay. Sometimes that means referring them to our homelessness prevention program. Sometimes that means referring them to legal aid. And sometimes that looks like referring them to us. So Monika and I are part of the Rapid Rehousing team. So when you come to Rapid Rehousing, I review the information and kind of go through my mental Rolodex of resources that both Monika and Jay make fun of me about, but it doesn't matter because it's still there. And so I go through my mental Rolodex of resources, and when I send your information to Miriam, who is our enrollment specialist, I also suggest different resources she might want to mention to the person just to see if they're already working with them, right? And so Miriam then meets with the clients to enroll them in our program and kind of explain our process and what we do. And from there, the person is then shifted to Zoe, which is our housing search and placement coordinator. And while you're in housing search and placement, essentially what Zoe is doing is assisting you and helping you and apply for housing and to continue your housing search. So keep in mind that just because we stabilize you this one time, things happen. Maybe your landlord sells the building in 5 years and you need to find somewhere else to go. So kind of what Zoe is showing you is the ropes of doing this housing search, however many times you may have to do a housing search. She's also talking to you about things that are important to get housing. So a lot of landlords in this county heavily rely on income and pay stubs to determine whether or not they can approve someone. So if you don't make 3 to 4 times the amount of the rent, they are not always comfortable renting to you because they're not sure that you can financially afford it. For that reason, Zoe is going to talk to you about job searching if you don't have a job. Or if you do have a job, but you're kind of being underpaid, well, where could your skill set be used otherwise? What resources do you have in the event that you get housed, but maybe you're about to miss a rent payment and you don't know what to do. So we're kind of from the very beginning, when you talk to Miriam, like Jay said, we're kind of throwing these resources out there like, hey, when these types of things come up, consider these resources. So with Monika being our resident tenant education guru, we have some packets that she put together that we also give people in the housing search phase. We want you to understand how to be a good tenant. We want you to understand what landlords are looking for. One of the best things I've ever heard Monika say is, when you go to your housing interview, it's like going to a job interview. Don't just show up and not have a pen and a piece of paper. Show up, be ready to take notes, be ready to ask questions, those types of things. So then once Zoe is able to get you housed and we're able to provide you with financial assistance or whatever assistance you may need, furniture, what have you, a food box, a toilet box, what have you, then that the person passes to Monika, and Monika does case management. And so I'm going to pass the mic to Monika and let her talk about what she does in case management.
Well, thank you. Case management is really about stabilization and creating that plan with that individual and what it looks like. I think one main thing that we do in order to address homelessness is, you can't end homelessness without housing. Where are we gonna put people? You have to have housing in order to end homelessness. We can't end homelessness unless we have affordable housing. So we have to be able to engage with landlords, investors, and property owners to bring them into Alamance County to offer that affordable housing, so then we can be on that track to end homelessness. Being a good tenant, and since now we're bringing in landlords and we're placing individuals with landlords we have developed relationships with who are able to put a little bit of lack on their requirements. These private landlords don't want the 3 or 4 times the rent that's kind of mandated through a lot of the 36 property management companies that Jay talked about, which only 6 are affordable. So if we have more affordable housing with private landlords, then we can be able to discuss with landlords that this person doesn't have 3 or 4 times the income, they have 2 or 2.5, but they're working with case management on budgeting in order to help them be sustainable. Housing is about, and ending someone's homelessness is about helping them to become sustainable and the tools that they need, because as Shereá brought up, things are going to happen. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose hours at my job. I'm not going to work this extra job. So what do I do? And how do I develop that conversation with my landlord to inform them what's going on? I don't want to lose my housing, but this is what my financial problem is. I don't want to lose my housing, but I have to flee this DV relationship. I don't want to lose my housing, but I have this mental health crisis that I have to go into an institution for a little while to receive help or whatever medical services that needs to go on. So teaching residents and keep teaching clients how to be that good tenant in that communication, and letting them know what the difference between their rights are and what the landlord's responsibilities are. I think a lot of homelessness in Alamance County is due to lack of education, especially around their lease. A lot of people feel that I'm late on my rent and my landlord tells me to leave. Now I got to hurry up and leave. There's a long process between that and eviction, and there's quite a bit of days that could be done with that. But if people don't know that process and they don't understand that, and there's not education around that, as soon as they get that quit the premises letter, they're out. Now we have another situation that this individual is homeless, where if we would have intervened before, if that individual would have had the skills to contact legal aid, I'm not sure of my next steps of what to do, we can solve that person's homelessness and prevent it from happening. So I think with our agency, we do a lot around that education with that landlord engagement as well, and making sure that too, that we can't end homelessness without these landlords and engaging in landlords and bringing them to the table of what we can offer for them, because running a landlord or property management, it's a business. It's a business. Landlords, it's a business. We have some good landlords, we got some bad landlords. That means we got some good business partners or some bad business partners. So how do we maintain the good business partners within their housing and their units available? And I think too, within Alamance County, Shereá, when you started this off, the first thing that you said is understanding what homelessness looks like, and also understanding what housing looks like. Housing is not just a 1-bedroom apartment and now I'm in the place where I want to be, or I need a 5-bedroom or a 3-bedroom. No, you may need a roommate for a little while in order to sustain your finances. So understanding what different type of housing units and dwellings that could be available and that could be affordable. And those are things that could definitely address the homelessness within Alamance County.
Okay, what is the most important thing that people need to know about hunger and homelessness in Alamance County?
I actually won't even defer to Jay this time. I'll just start with myself. Look at there. I think that what people need to understand is that it can happen to anybody. You can miss a few paychecks and be homeless. You can miss a few paychecks and be hungry. Things happen to people. And I think that when we go through certain situations, they may humble us and help get us back on track and introduce us to new resources, depending on how open-minded we are. But I don't think anybody went out with the mission to be hungry or to be homeless. And while there are some people who may remain in those states for whatever reason they choose, because Jay did talk about client's choice, right? There's also an underlying reason as to why. And I think that what we have to understand is that because this could happen to any of us, we could also choose to remain in that circumstance, and there could be a reason why. So I think that's what people have to understand. I hear a lot of conversations at the congressional level where they talk about the Bible and the least of these and what you're supposed to do for others and this, that, and the third. And I think that regardless of your religious teachings, regardless of your religious practices, at a baseline, what we all know is that you are supposed to love one another and be kind. And I think that there are plenty of situations where people end up hungry and homeless because someone was not kind, or where someone had the opportunity to help and chose not to. And so that's the other thing we have to consider is how that could happen to us and how we have to be mindful of doing that to other people.
That was great. That was great, Shereá. That was awesome. For me, I often say things that sting a little bit or cause a little shock. The single most thing, Adrienne, right now would be you can't help homelessness and hunger if you never visit the places that work to eradicate homelessness and hunger. We have a lot of community advocates, a lot of people that are helping, assisting, aiding. But if you're not aware of the processes and the systems that are in place in Alamance County, then you may not be doing as much good as you think you're doing, right? I say it all the time. Monika will probably close her eyes when I say it. There is a fine line between ending homelessness and hunger and enabling hunger and homelessness. Get out, get into community, learn the resources, visit Family Abuse Services Rapid Rehousing Division, visit allied churches, come to forums such as this, Adrienne, great forum, keep on doing them. I hope we get another one, to continue to spread the word that the processes are in place, right? Example, there's only one way to get a driver's license. Only one. There's only one. A legal driver's license. Shereá hit the book her eyes. Let me make that. Legal driver's license. There's only one. But once you follow that path and the world followed that path, we all had a unified motion of how we get to where we're trying to go. The program has been set. The program has been set across all of the states. This same program is being run in Canada. The same program is being run in Germany. Let's learn the resources. Let's learn the processes and get people to the right places, right? Let's, a hand up versus a handout. Let's get people to the right places and let those individuals that are in charge of administering those programs actually do the work. Because many times we have ability to do things that most individuals do not. I know as a nonprofit director, there are phone calls that I can make that I never would have thought that an individual could make, right? Around who to call, what to get done, how to get people housed. So let's learn the resources and get people to the right place. and then we can really make an impact. That would be my statement.
Okay, I love both of those. I agree 100% with all that. I think for me, what would the most important thing, I think Shereá said it, understand what homelessness looks like. It looks like me, it looks like you, it looks like everybody on this panel. And if we're not understanding what homelessness looks like, then we're not going to be able to understand the people who are working in it in order to end it. So understand the agencies that are there, that are already doing the work, and connect with them in order to see how you can be able to help, because you may think you're helping, but you're actually enabling. And I think just really the main important thing is you can't end homelessness without housing. So if you're a landlord or know a landlord or know somebody knows somebody that owns property, that owns land, somebody knows somebody, refer them to somewhere to be so that we can end homelessness if they have housing that's available. So I think that's a hand-in-hand thing. So I think the most important thing in ending and understanding homelessness, know that it could be any one of us. And if you have that information of someone that has property, send them to Allied Churches and to Family Abuse Services so that we can work with that landlord into getting that housing available.
Okay, so how can community members do more to address hunger and homelessness in Alamance County?
All right, I never started, so I'm starting from I think we all said it. I think really connecting with agencies that are already out here doing the work. There's no need to recreate or reinvent the wheel. We're already doing the work, and the work is succeeding. In Alamance County, literally in 2021, their point in time count, there were 22 people that were homeless. In 2020, there was 41. The work is being done. There's people that are already there doing the work. So connect with those agencies that are doing the work, because what they're doing is working. And no need to go out and reinvent a whole new wheel on understanding what homelessness is. There's already agencies here that are doing it. So I think community members, forums like this, getting in contact, having questions, go to Allied Churches for lunch or for dinner. You won't regret it. I mean, really visiting the places and being there where the community is being served at. You can't be helping the community if you're not going to be a part of the community. So really being a part of the community events that are going on and things that are there, forums like this, definitely being involved.
I think that's it. Pardon some of the old rap lyrics, but get up, get out, and do something. Get up, get out, and understand what those agencies are doing. We had a whole community fair. How many agencies? 9 agencies. And we had a great turnout, more than what we expected. However, not what we should have expected, right? Get out, get up, and join something. Learn what's going on. Take a tour of the shelter. Call the Rapid Rehousing Division and say, hey, you said something, I didn't understand it. Can you explain it to me again? Can you show me how this works? I think once you get involved, then you gain knowledge. Once you gain knowledge, wisdom and understanding usually follows, right? We have to get to that point where we're empowering the community to get out and get active in what's already going on. There's no reason to create more avenues that ultimately end up back to the 3 people that are on the screen. And we've had some instances in the last year or 2 where new things have blossomed, and then we find out, then they're like, oh, but you were already doing this. Yeah, we've been doing it now for 32 years. we kind of know how this works. So just get involved. Get involved. Not a shameless plug for Allied Churches. Get involved somewhere. Do the good work. Get involved somewhere, and then you're part of the solution.
So I echo what Monica and Jay said. I would also add that it's as simple as liking allied churches on Facebook. Jay does a very good job of putting it out there when there are needs that they have. And some of them are not needs that y'all would even think of. Like the Family Abuse Services of Alamance County page on Facebook. We too post needs. So like one thing we know right now is that Allied Churches is doing their honor cards, which is a fundraiser, right? So maybe you're not in the position to be present at Allied Churches, but you would like to help somehow. Find out about the honor cards, right? Reach out to somebody and make a donation. At Family Abuse Services right now, we're doing a food drive for the month of November. And the flyer is on my Facebook page if you're my Facebook friend, and you're welcome to drop off food on our front porch. The flyer is also on the Family Abuse Services Facebook page. We will be doing a toiletry drive in December. So I think that, you know, having an eye on things, and social media makes that very, very easy. It makes it very easy to know what people are doing and also to see the results. So that's one thing I can also say that Allied Churches does a wonderful job of. Jay and I partner together to house a lot of people. You will see Monica on the Allied Churches Facebook page. You will see Zoe on the Allied Churches Facebook page, and you will also see the clients who we helped house with the keys in their hands. So I think that there are very simple ways for you to get involved. I know that when we had the community resource fair, to be honest, that wasn't just about community members. Some of it was about local agencies where it was kind of like the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. And so you would call us to have us refer a client to this place for this service. And we'd be like, no, they actually need to go here. So one of the greatest things that I saw at the community resource fair wasn't just the people from the community mingling, but it was the people from the agencies mingling and learning more about the criteria for referrals, because that's something that they didn't realize that either they were doing incorrectly or they weren't doing at all. The first person that comes to mind for me is the representative that was there from vocational rehabilitation. And there were people saying, I don't even know what that means. And I was like, so you do know what that means. It's just that you didn't know that there was a place where you could send people for that. And so this is your opportunity to learn about it. I think that the other thing is being mindful of things like the Link Transit, right? So right now the Link Transit is free. So you can get on the Link Transit and ride the different bus routes. And I encourage people, especially agencies, to do that, because sometimes you're asking people to come to your office because you don't, you know, you're not comfortable going to their homes, or because it's COVID or what have you, or maybe they don't have housing. I got that. But sometimes they have to transfer off the bus 2-3 times to get to your office. So sometimes it looks like figuring out what exactly is happening that is creating, you know, kind of like a clog in getting people to you, and how can you alleviate that? What options do you have around that? And one of the last things I would say is, as you gain this information and this knowledge, advocating. So there's someone in the chat that sent me a message that the amazing Phil Bowers of Sustainable Alamance told them about this event. And I'm pretty sure that Phil Bowers learned about this event because he attended a United Way Community Council meeting. Those meetings are open to the public and they're on Zoom. So look for ways to learn more and then advocate. We talk to you all a lot about affordable housing, and you know who's not really in the position to advocate for affordable housing? People looking for housing. So those of us who have housing or have access to purchase housing and make it affordable should definitely be looking for ways to advocate around that. Because if Allied Churches closes tomorrow and Family Abuse Services closes the day after, there will be a lot of people in need, and there's no reason that the people of Alamance County can't come together to address those needs without agencies leading the way. As somebody who Adrienne said was raised here, you know, that makes me a little bit different than everybody else on the screen, right? And so I think that this county and this community has the ability to do great things. We have the ability to identify problems. Y'all know if we can't do nothing else, we can identify a problem, put it all in the Times News, right? But too often we do not talk about the solutions and what we have to do as part of those solutions. So where you are seeing people who are homeless or experiencing homelessness or having, you know, bouts with hunger, what can you do? For those of you who are members of churches, what can your church do? Y'all heard me mention food pantries. If you're interested in starting a food pantry at your church, I got about 5 people I can refer you to that can help you do that. There are ways. There are ways that you can get involved. There are ways that you can make a difference. And there are ways that we can end the issues of hunger and homelessness. But a lot of that starts with you taking the initiative. We can't continue to look at the people on this screen or the people having those experiences and expecting them to solve those problems, because that's that's not realistic. So I again will encourage you to donate to allied churches, to donate to family abuse services, to donate to our food drive, to check out the Allied Church's Facebook page and see when Jay says he needs styrofoam trays. Because if you know nothing else about me, you know that I'm going to put it on Facebook and tag 5 or 6 of y'all and tell y'all to go buy some trays. Because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that people have a meal. And if a tray is preventing that, then we can all go buy some trays and we can make sure people have food. So I'm gonna climb off my soapbox now, but I believe in Alamance County. I want y'all to know that, and I want y'all to know that there are so many options and ways to make a difference and to make an impact around both of these issues if you just pay attention and take some steps in the right direction.
That's so true. And in closing, I do just want to say thank you to the panelists for your words of wisdom, for sharing your resources, for all it is that you do for Alamance County and its residents from a space of compassion, right? It means so much when you're doing it from a place of truly caring about the issue, wanting to try to advocate for the people who need it the most, the voiceless, because that's why we are propped up in our positions to be able to help and to serve. Be sure that you all go, try to support not just only these organizations, right? Alamance County is a resource-rich county, right? Jay hit on something that was, very, very important, right? We have so many resources, and Shereá also touched on it too, that, one hand doesn't always know what the other one is doing, and we can, address issues and situations better if we all collaboratively come together for community. I'd also like to just mention, if you think homelessness and hunger doesn't directly affect you, the panelists have touched on it several times, an abundance of reasons as to how that does affect you. But most of us are just one missed paycheck from homelessness. When you factor in COVID, right before COVID, we were always told to make sure that we have 3 months worth of living expenses to survive off of in the event that we have an emergency, right? After COVID, they're telling us to have a year. If you don't have a year in savings in your account, baby, this definitely affects you too. And it affects everyone that you're interacting with. And then last but not least, as we are in the season of giving, be sure that you are donating. There are, like they said, their organizations are accepting food. Make sure that when you're giving food, that you're giving healthy options, right? Just because you are, living on less does not mean that you don't deserve healthy options. We all deserve healthy options. So make sure that you're giving healthy options. Thank you so much, This Woman's Words, for having this panel and for allowing me to moderate. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Be blessed and be safe.